to do when considering the semi-field theory is that you've got to shift from that third person to a first person. You've got to say, okay, you're not now looking at the brain's electromagnetic field and looking down in it. You've got to shift to the frame, to the physical frame of the electromagnetic field in the brain. So instead of your frame being the neurons and thinking about the electromagnetic field as something external, you've now got to say, okay, what would it feel like if it was the brain's electromagnetic field? Now, once you do that, then strange things happen. And this is, you from this third person to this first person. Now you are the brain's electromagnetic field. So what do we get with that? You get all of the information in the brain is there. It's all there in a point, it's there in every infinitesimal point of the brain, and it's there throughout the entire brain. And it is you, and that becomes your first person perspective. And the weirdness of this, it's worthwhile thinking about. It is a big jump. For example, if you jump, and the consequences of this jump, I think are still not entirely clear to me. I'm saying that your consciousness is actually residing on photons. Photons are the particles of the electromagnetic field. Now, photons are very strange because they don't experience time. A photon that is released from, say, the surface of the sun may take several minutes to find its way into your eye, but from the photon's perspective, it takes zero time. It is released from an electron at the surface of the sun, and it appears in an electron. It is absorbed by an electron in your retina at the same moment in time. Remember that in Einstein's theory of special relativity, as you approach the speed of light, time stands still. So time freezes when you're at the speed of light. And at the speed of light, you can travel around the entire universe in a single moment of time. Now we have to say, okay, we are these photons, that are being emitted from one neuron and being picked up by another neuron. They don't experience time between the emission and the absorption of that photon. They also are delocalized because no photon is any different. The photon that is picked up here is not different from a photon picked up elsewhere. So it's a very strange, I'm still getting my mind around and my mind being electromagnetic field itself, I propose, it's thinking about itself and trying to work out, okay, what are the consequences for that? And I think they may have some consequences, for example, in thinking about the arrow of time. If we're photons, we don't really experience, if our mind or conscious mind is a photon, except essentially trillions of photons in an electromagnetic field, time is experienced differently because we're traveling at the speed of light. Our conscious mind is traveling at the speed of light between one neuron and another. And whether that gives you some different experience of time than everything else, I think is something that is intriguing, and I haven't quite got my head around it. But I think there are essentially, so go back to the original question, that third person to the first person is like when Einstein worked out his theory of special relativity, he imagined himself jumping on a photon and gliding around the universe and saying, okay, how would the universe look if you were doing this? I'm asking people when they're thinking about the semi-field theory to do the same. Jump on the photon in your brain. This is now your first person perspective. You are all of the information that your brain is generating and you're able to influence and is able to influence your actions. That is you. That's your first person perspective. You are information. You aren't someone absorbing information, looking at information. You are information. So consciousness then is information encoded in electromagnetic fields, in photons. That is you. And that's your first person perspective. Then we have to, what do we mean by free will? Why is it free? And this is the idea that I think it's a very confusing term, free will. And I think the word has thrown philosophers are on a wrong track for hundreds of years. When we think about our willed actions, are they really free? If I choose to raise my hand, that's a free choice, you say, but actually it's not something that didn't have antecedent causes. I raised my hands because I was trying to make a point about free will, and that was the cause of it. The reason why I was trying to make a point about free will was because I'm having an interview with you, Zaza, and the cause of that is because you sent me an email a week or so ago. So we understand, if we think about our actions, that they aren't really free. They're caused by earlier actions, earlier things that happened. So I think this free part of will is confusing, and we should get rid of the term free will. It's just will. Mm-hmm. Free will was forced upon us really by religion. Religion has forced the idea of free will because it believes that, say in Christianity and many other religions such as Islam as well, we are free to make choices so God can punish us if we make the wrong choice. We're going to be free to do that. And it's really emerged from Christianity and other religions which gave us this freedom because we had to be ethically responsible for our actions. And we had to punish people who make free choices. But actually, if you look at very ancient stories, they don't seem to have free will. When people in ancient Greek myths, Odysseus does this, or he goes back and they fight the Trojan Wars. Everything that happens, people don't seem to be free to choose what happens. When another Greek myth, Oedipus's father tries to kill his son because he believes that there's a prediction that his son Oedipus was going to kill him, so he tries to kill him, but when he does this, he sends him off somewhere, and that means that he doesn't get killed, but when they meet at some point, Oedipus doesn't recognize his father, and Oedipus kills his father. So the prediction comes true, and this is a belief that people had in many ancient traditions of fate, that we aren't really all that free. Fate and destiny is actually a more ancient way of thinking about will. Yes, we have actions which we control, but they have antecedent causes. So that's the first thing I want to say about free will. Whatever it is, it's deterministic. Whatever thoughts we have are determined by earlier thoughts. But what we call our voluntary actions are distinct because we think about them, and they're caused by our conscious mind. And there are involuntary things we do, like me waving my hands when I'm talking, that are unconscious, and they're not part of our willed actions. They're just happening. And there are all sorts of things that we do. Blinking, for example, is non-conscious or unconscious. All the lips movements that I'm making to movement of my lips and tongue to speak, I don't have to think about those actions. So most of what the brain does comes on automatic pilot. And it's like what a robot does or a machine. And most of our actions are machine-like. But we have a subset of our actions that we think about. And that subset are influenced by our conscious mind, which is our brain's electromagnetic field. And that electromagnetic field will push and pull on neurons, persuading some to fire, some inhibiting firing of. And that is what we experience as what we call free will. That is our will. It isn't free, it's deterministic, but then I don't really think that anyone thinks their will is free. If you think of any action you do, you can find a cause for it in a previous, why you phone your brother, because maybe someone you saw on the TV reminded you of your brother, so you phone your brother. All of our actions have antecedents. So this idea of free will and the word free just confuses people. And we should drop free from will. Will is the action of the brain's electromagnetic field on the brain. That is what will is. It's not free, but it's will.